Welcome everyone to week number 3 in Science 200. This week is all about finding and analyzing scientific sources. So let's see what we've got going on. So last week you learned about the process of science, and you did a lot of reading in your Sumo web text about the cholera epidemic that was in London in the 1800s. And it was caused by poor sanitation practices and the fact that they were dumping sewage into the Thames River and then using some of that contaminated water as the source of their drinking water, which is disgusting if you think about it. But I mean, that's the way that it happened, and they just didn't realize what was happening. So along comes Dr. John Snow, and he analyzes the number of cases and the location of the cases and where their water supplies were coming from. And he determined that cholera, that epidemic that was going on, was caused by contaminated water sources instead of miasma. And so this opened up the world of disease detection, infections, how diseases were transmitted, and all that sort of thing, because everyone thought at that time that bad odors were how diseases were transmitted. Now, not saying that bad odors are not a good indication of something that is going on, because that is absolutely true. How do you know your milk is sour? Open it and smell it. Yeah, right? You know that. So that tells you that some bacterial fermentation probably is going on in the milk carton. So you learned about the process of science last week, and this week is all about finding and using scientific sources. So I mentioned last week that the Shapiro Library is an excellent resource for you, a huge database of all kinds of articles for you to look for as you're searching for scientific sources for your topics this week. Okay, and that's important, scientific sources. These are not news articles. They aren't, oh boy, are they not opinion pieces, right? Scientific research papers on these topics. Now, yes, they can be difficult to read. We'll talk about that, okay? And once you pull up one of these articles, then you got to figure out how in the world do you read the thing, and do you have to read every single word and know what every single statistic means? No, usually don't. Especially in your case, you need to know the basics, and we're going to figure out how to do that. So I'm going to show you an example of a scientific journal article that I just pulled up at random about some simulated viral particles that a scientist has produced. So here it is right here. Let me get my face out of the way for a second. There you go. So here is the article. I looked it up in the Shapiro Library. It's a full text article, which is woo awesome. Because then you can see every little part that you need to see. So what I want you to notice is, first of all, there is a title. And the title has to be extremely descriptive for a scientific journal article. So what does this say? A virus-like particle candidate vaccine. So they have made a fake little virus, it's a virus-like particle, to be used as a vaccine, and they have done this by using a particular type of gene editing technology called CRISPR-Cas9. And does it give protection against SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID? Looks like it does from what the title says. Okay, so the title is a real good indication of what's in the article. Sometimes you still don't know if that's enough. So look over here on the left-hand side. See over here? Look at it, outline. Now, every journal article does not have an outline, but some of these do. And I wanted to show that to you because now with this one with the outline, we can jump to each of the sections quickly. Otherwise, you just go scroll through. Okay, so highlights, we won't worry about those. You know, that's the gist of it. But abstract. Now, that's the most important section of the whole journal article, and especially for you, the abstract. So let's hit it. All right, here it is right there, abstract. The emergence of severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2, you know what it is, SARS-CoV-2, variants with frequent mutations has seriously damaged the effectiveness of the 2019 and 2020 vaccines, right? So we've got to find a way to make new vaccines and make them quickly and make them in response to new variants. And that's what the rest of this is describing. So here we developed virus-like particles, blah, 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 immunization, blah, blah, blah. Golden hamsters. Further investigation into the immune response revealed that there was recruitment of immune system cells, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So the abstract tells you everything about this article. It tells you the premise of it, like what is the idea behind this? What is the question? What are they investigating? How are they doing it? Here we developed virus-like particles. So they're showing you what they did, how they tested it. They tested it in hamsters. What were the results? They found that there was an immune response to these virus-like particles. So these findings demonstrate the immunogenicity and efficacy of the safe use of this vaccine against SARS-CoV-2. That's the conclusion. So literally, it is a synopsis of the whole journal article, this abstract. Usually, that's all you need to know because they can't say anything wrong in this section. They can't go against what they've written in the article because they will absolutely be called out on that. That just doesn't happen because it goes through so many editors and peer review before this gets published. So that is not going to happen. What the abstract says is what the article says. All right? Now, if you want to delve deeper into this, look in the introduction. Now, here's one thing. If you find a really good journal article that has to do with your subject, exactly the information that you're looking for, look in the introduction. All right, I want you to notice how many references are in this section? A lot. Because what they're explaining in the introduction is all the background information behind this particular work. And so that means they have already done background searches. They already know all of this information published by all of these other scientists. And here's evidence that they are showing for the reason why they are doing this study. So look, you can look up Taylor et al. In 1995. You can look up that article. So you can, once you find one good article, you can use their references to find more. So the introduction is a real good spot for that. Materials and methods, you never list out your materials. The materials are always contained in the description of the methods, how you did this. That's what this is. Cells and viruses, the gene editing system, how they constructed the vaccines, blah, blah, blah. This is how they tested it. Results here. Oh man, this section is crazy because it is just full of stuff. It is full of diagrams. It is full of pictures of viruses. It is pictures of tissues that have been infected with these virus-like particles. Oh my goodness. Analysis of the viral particles that they isolated, etc., etc., etc. So that's the results section. And then the discussion section is telling you what it all means. But remember, they have told you, they have summarized all this down into a sentence or two in that abstract. But if you want more information about what this all means, look in the discussion section. Here's another important section. Ethics, approval, and consent to participate. Animal study protocol was approved. Funding, terribly important. Why? Because that colors your research. If a big pharma company is sponsoring your research on a new GMO, You know that they want one particular result, right? I mean, that's just the way that it is. And so you're going to keep doing that research until you get a result like that. That's just the way that it is. They're paying you to do the research. So look to see who's paying for the funding. If you find an organization like the National Institutes of Health, that is great because that is federal funding and there is no expectation for the results that you are going to get. All right? So look for that because that's important. All right, so let me go back to a PowerPoint. I gave you an example of how you actually look at a journal article. So you're going to have to analyze these articles for two criteria. First of all, are they credible? So look at the qualifications of the principal author. Look to see where this person works. Look to see what their funding source is. Are they credible? Do they have experience in this subject? Do they have a degree that is sufficient to do the research in this subject? You know, if you're a chiropractor and you're telling me all about how SARS-CoV-2 infects people and all the vaccines and how they work, no, that's not what you're an expert in. So look at the expertise of the author or authors. And also look to see if the source that you have pulled up is relevant. Is it answering your question? Sometimes students don't realize this. Yeah, sometimes that has nothing whatsoever to do with your topic. So that's relevancy. And like I said, always look to see who paid for the research. That is tremendously important because, like I said, that does add a level of bias. No matter what you think, you know, if I'm getting my research paid for by somebody, they're expecting some kind of result or not. If it's NIH, no, they don't really care. All right, so you're going to find at least 3 good sources. Now, let me say this. You're going to analyze 3 sources this week. You don't have to use just 3 sources for your topic that you're researching. Just realize that. No one on this planet who is a scientist would use 3 sources. But that's the minimum that you have to find. And 3 good sources, not just anything. And like I said, last week, don't just do a Google search. You will find a bazillion things out there, but so many of them are not scientific. So the Shapiro Library is good, PubMed is excellent, and Google Scholar is excellent. They all 3 will give you scientific journal articles. Then you're going to evaluate these, and these are part of your textbook work. All right, I want to mention one thing that's already been coming up this week. Let me move my face over. That looks so weird. There you go. Now I'm in the middle. One thing that's already been coming up is plagiarism issues. So once you upload a file into our course, you will notice that it will have a Turnitin score, a similarity score. And so you need to take a look at that, and you can. You see it right there in front of you, just like I see it. So if that score is high, and if it's in the red zone, you need to evaluate whether you are turning that in or not, because I'm going to look to see what's going on. If you're in the yellow zone, I will look. But if you're in the red zone, something's up. Too much of your work is something that somebody else has written somewhere. So make sure you check on that. What is plagiarism? Plagiarism is representing work from someone else as your own, and you cannot do that. That is virtually stealing their work, so you cannot do that. This can even be work that you have completed for another class at SNHU. You cannot turn in the same assignment for that environmental health class as you are this class. You have to do your own specific, unique work for this class. So plagiarism issues. If you are having any trouble with this and you aren't sure about it, we can discuss it. I'm always open to that. Make sure you cite your works that you're using the information of, even if you're writing it in your own words. If you got the information from your source, you need to cite that in the body of the text and then provide a reference list. Okay, so the bulk of what you're doing this week is analyzing 3 really good sources, and the first thing you have to do is go find them. And I told you 3 databases for that. But you also have discussion board postings. You need to write this one, the initial post, by Thursday and publish it by Thursday evening. And that means that you will already have to have looked for your sources and read them. So what you're going to answer is, what was your biggest challenge in finding your sources? Finding them. Usually this means typing in the correct terms in order to do a search, and typing in enough terminology in order to find something that is relevant to your topic. If you just type in ocean acidification or genetic engineering, oh my word, you are going to get thousands upon thousands of articles, books, etc. So yeah, you got to narrow it down. So what was your biggest challenge in finding your sources, and what have been your biggest challenges in analyzing your scientific sources? For one thing, you have to read all that scientific jargon. It is a whole different language, and really in science, each subdiscipline has its own language. Genetics, oh my goodness, that is like learning a foreign language to understand genetics. So the jargon, how do you understand that? How do you understand even the simple terminology? You're going to have to look up terminology. How do you understand the statistics? Sometimes that's very difficult. Remember to always look at that abstract, because they will give you the gist of what you need for your information. So what have been some challenges for you finding and analyzing your scientific sources? Then how did you overcome these issues? Because somebody else might need your advice on how to do this. Use examples, specific examples, at least 2, right? Specific examples. Don't just blather on about nothingness. You know, there has to be substance in what it is that you're writing. So use specific examples. Your format is in paragraph form, and most likely this will be 2 paragraphs. 1 paragraph about you finding your sources and the challenges you had, how you overcame them, and 1 for analyzing your sources. All right. And then you have 2 response posts where you respond to your classmates by Sunday evening before midnight. Compare your challenges to their challenges. Did you find the same problems? Did you have similarities or differences? Share with them any tips that you have about analyzing or finding sources. Share tips, because we're all here to work together and to learn from each other. So, and sometimes, once in a while, I'll find one hidden gem that I don't know about. So please, please share your tips and tricks for finding and analyzing sources. That's your discussion board postings, deadlines, Thursday, Sunday. And with that being said, use your textbook and what you have read in your textbook to help you answer the discussion board questions, because your textbook is really good at explaining the issues having to do with finding and analyzing scientific sources. And follow the directions. Remember the guidelines and rubric. Remember, it's always highlighted everywhere. So just click on that and you'll find the guidelines, that's the instructions. The rubric is the grading sheet for each assignment. Please follow the directions. If you don't, you will be hearing from me about that in your feedback. Okay? With that being said, I hope that you have an absolutely wonderful week number 3.